Line managing staff is not easy. The purpose of having a hierarchy in your organization, having these different roles and staff under a hierarchy of management is in order to achieve some organizational vision. That's the basic reason why we have staff. And so managing staff is always going to be a complicated balancing act. Because on the one hand, you have a responsibility to deliver certain results within your team, your department, whatever. But you also have sort of a moral duty, and there is just a human thing of we also want to take care of the people who we line manage. And actually, there is a good organizational reason for that as well, because if we don't look after their welfare, they tend to become demotivated and more likely to leave the organization. And once we've spent all of that time and effort in recruiting and orientating people, we don't really want them to be leaving again when they're people that we want. So, it's a difficult balancing act of needing to get particular results out of them, but you are also wanting to look after their welfare and to motivate them. I think when line management is done well, I think you can actually achieve both of these at the same time. And in which case you can keep it nicely in balance. But there are times where people are not good and they tend to focus on one or the other, and then they fail to keep both of these priorities going. I'm going to look at a couple of kind of more modern theories that are out there. The first one comes from a chap called Simon Sinek, who he talks about the need for line managers to make their staff feel safe. He says inside your team, inside the relationship between the line manager and the line managed, they need to feel safe. That is one of the key factors that the line manager needs to consider. And that's not necessarily safe from monsters. It's about feeling psychologically safe. Do they feel safe to say that they want to? When they have an idea, do they feel free to bring that idea forward? Do they feel that they need to do certain things in order to keep their job? Otherwise, they're going to be out of the team and out of favor. The line manager has to figure out what is necessary to keep this person feeling safe. And so, sometimes we make mistakes. And, some line managers end up being Tulamanchis, the big guy, the dominating one. Well, if a line manager behaves in that kind of way and demonstrates their power and shows off that they are the important one, then the likelihood is members of their teams, they're all going to look out for themselves. There will be a lack of cooperation within the team. People will tend more towards backstabbing, and they're not going to be very interested in results because they're all trying to look out for their own welfare. In comparison, a manager who chooses to sacrifice themselves and put the members of their team forward, well, they are much more likely to have a team that is willing to cooperate and look out for each other, and they will also look out for the leader. And so, if you can give your team a sense of feeling safe, and that the team leader themselves is willing to put themselves out to ensure that safety, the team members are much more likely to perform and to engage and to build a strong, meaningful team. Another theory that's out there, where you can find a book called Fish, is it's all about how you inspire your team. And some of that is about how you, as the team leader, how do you turn up? Do you show up to work Monday morning, more hard work? Well, all of your team are going to do the same. Whereas if you come to work saying, hey team, what are we going to achieve this week? Can we get another bit closer to our vision? How many people are we going to help this week? Your sense of positivity or negativity is going to be reflected in your team. They also know whether you are committed to them or not. And if you want them to achieve, you have to be there for them. You have to empower them. You have to be committed to them. And then they can be creative in helping the team forward. If the team recognize that actually everybody in the team has a responsibility toward everybody else in looking after one another, in helping one another forward, in checking each other, in holding one another accountable, that anybody is free to give advice and to coach another person on the team, that it's not all just a top-down process. But if you can engender that sense that everybody has to look out for everybody else, the team is going to work much more successfully. And then it becomes the leader's job to make sure that the vision is the thing that everybody is focused on. And a lot of the managing the team actually is done amongst the team members themselves. Now, this gets much harder to do when we are managing long distance. When we're trying to manage staff who are far away, or even they might be close, but they're not regularly in contact. Now that we've had working from home experience, we recognize that actually working with staff who you don't physically see is challenging. It requires that we set very clear goals. It may be that we need to be more careful in how we articulate those goals. Do we use SMART language? Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. Do we think about rapid decision making? You may have to go back to an earlier module about that one. Do we really clarify who is deciding what and where they are involved in different decision making processes? It may be that you need to schedule regular communication, because when you're bumping into people in an office and it's all face to face, it's fine. You might, spend 2 minutes talking to them one day, 20 minutes talking to them another day. Maybe you don't talk to them for several days, but because there's that closeness, it's much easier. But when you're at the other end of a wire, you need to schedule that time and be sure that you are regularly meeting with your people, that there needs to be some sort of agenda. What are we planning to talk about? Don't have it all as a surprise for them, that they turn up for the meeting and they don't actually know what is going to be coming. So plan in advance. This is what we are going to be talking about. And when you've finished, write up. This is what we spoke about. Do you agree that this is a correct? It's like minutes of the meeting, basically. We wouldn't normally take minutes of a face-to-face meeting, but when we're meeting face-to-face, it's easy to correct things afterwards, because you can speak to them and say, I think that we may have misunderstood each other on that issue. Whereas you can't do that on email. It's not easy. So maybe you have to get a little bit more formal in some of your communication processes. One of the tools that we use when we're dealing with staff who are remote is using something like Skype or Zoom or Teams or whatever. Now, to use these tools effectively, it does require a little bit of preparation. I would suggest that because these things often are very resource heavy, they use the brain of your computer a great deal. They use a lot of internet. So make sure that your software is well up to date, and go around and just close all the other programs that you don't actually need open whilst you're talking to this person, because then the computer runs better. Make sure you've got a nice profile photo set, because it makes such a difference when you're talking to somebody and you can actually, if you're not using video, at least you can still see a picture of who they are. So make sure your profile photo is up to date. Do use headphones. The little earbuds, the ones that come in here and you have, they're even better. Big ones like this, it doesn't look so nice when you're talking to the other person. It's yeah, I think it's better if we can have the little earbuds so that you can hear them well. But do put headphones in, because then you don't get so much feedback coming through the microphone. If you are using video, make sure the light is coming from in front of you, not that you've got a nice big bright window immediately behind you. Maybe you might want to make a test call before you set off. So in Skype, it's called making an echo call. In Teams and in Zoom, in the audio settings, you can make a test call to make sure that your microphone and your hearing is all working and in sync. What is your backup plan? If this goes wrong, how are you going to talk to them instead? Do you have a telephone number for them so that if this goes wrong, you know what you're going to do? But otherwise, turn your phone off, either off or at least onto silent. And if you are the host, make sure that everybody kind of signs in and you check everybody's audio before the meeting begins. Yeah. Okay, so we've done our sort of preparation time. Now we're actually in the meeting. The chairperson, who may not be the same person as the host. Sometimes it's quite useful to have a separate host. So the host is the person who's doing the tech and making sure that everybody stays connected and going to the right, breakout rooms and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the chairperson is the one who is then running the meeting. The chairperson should open with introductions and make sure that everybody knows everybody else in the room. And everybody knows what is the backup solution. If this meeting goes down, what are we going to do? How do we contact each other? Do we just switch? Do we try again using the same link? Or do we move to a different platform, etc.? Just be really clear. When you are speaking, make sure you're clear who you're speaking to. Jack, I need you to do such and such. Krishna, what do you think about such and such? Be very clear who you are speaking to. Don't just say, so what do you think about this? Because there's a whole bunch of people who are listening. Be clear, which person are you speaking to? When you are not speaking, put your microphone onto mute. Saves bandwidth, means that everybody else can speak more freely. Although probably the chair is often keeps their microphone on throughout. If your connection does drop, I would suggest that you get people to contact the host, so that the tech person is trying to figure things out rather than tying up the chairperson who's trying to run the meeting. And then at the end, the chairperson can be really clear. Okay, this is what we have talked about. Here's a quick summary of what we've talked about. And here are the action points. Jack, you're going to do such and such. Krishna, you're going to be doing this, this, and this, and this, and this is when we're going to meet again. Just somebody, the chairperson needs to be making sure that the meeting runs smoothly and that everything is as clear as possible for people who are not present. That's really important for virtual meetings, is that thing of clarity. Because you don't have such an easy time of being able to give feedback and saying, I didn't really understand that, or did you really mean that, or I've had another idea. You can't do all of that kind of thing. So things need to be much more clear, much more formal than you might be used to.